No worries. Welcome on in, everybody. My name is AirAngel. Welcome to the Air Show, aka the Vroom Vroom broadcast. Unofficial title: we are live on the NASA 2020 Speedrun Marathon benefiting Save the Children. Do it for the kids. We're gonna be playing Sailor Moon R on Game Boy, and we're gonna be playing Arcade Easy Percent. So basically, this is the most ideal game for anybody that is like me that likes to tank damage and just play the game. So we're gonna start our time as soon as I select the character, and I believe our character is gonna be Sailor Jupiter, which is a community favorite. My personal favorites. And we're gonna start in 3, 2, and go! Alright. So I'm playing this on a Game Boy player that's linked to a GameCube. If anybody is interested in running handheld games, I definitely recommend it. Picture's obviously beautiful with all the lovely pixel art. And the music is just big Sour Please Pepe Jam. And I just basically fell for the first time. So we messed up at the very beginning, which is awesome. So now the rest of the run's just gonna be even better, so... so with Arcade Percent, it's pretty simple. You just beat the game. They give you a bunch of lives. So it's really easy just to like tank a bunch of damage and just go for it. That's what we're gonna do today. And of course Tuxedo Mask steps in, does absolutely nothing for us. So just for the main smaller bosses and stuff, just hop around, jump, and dodge. You usually have enough life even if you take enough damage the whole time that it doesn't really phase you a whole lot, which is also a lot of fun. But this particular category is for the arcade section of this game. The Game Boy version has a regular playthrough of the Sailor Moon R game. They also have the Arcade Percent, which is what we're playing today. They're a basic platformer, sort of shooter, beat 'em up. Sailor Jupiter's power is Supreme Thunder Dragon, I believe, in the R series. So we're gonna be Thunder Dragon. And the main healing points are these little cakes that I just picked up, as well as hearts that you can get throughout the level. Yeah, Tuxedo Mask barely does anything anyways. He also leaves this little rose right here. It does give us extra lives, which doesn't really mean a whole lot to us because we're gonna try not to die, obviously. So this guy, I just try not to take a whole lot of damage because he does like 3 consecutive damage hits at once, so it's like if you only hit 1 out of 3, you're probably gonna survive. Again, easy percent with all the hearts we've got. It's no big deal. Look at that. Boom. Goes dynamite. It's also faster if you continuously jump. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. I will say one thing, I mean it's probably like this for most Game Boy games, at least from what I can tell. The turnaround, like going left and right super quickly, is a little difficult. So, even if you turn left or right, you could also like jump backwards, sort of, which is nice for like a directional, so you don't have to physically like turn her to move. Your iframes in this are also ridiculously long. I think it's like a couple seconds after you get hit, so like it's really not that big of a deal. And if you're just starting off, just make sure you collect a bunch of hearts towards the end before the boss battle. You should be good. Alright, so for this one we have to be a little careful because it is a little kicky. Alright, we survived. Also, another awesome thing about this game is you get full lives after every level, which is pretty dope. If you're someone like me that really loves tanking damage, like I said before, this is the game in the category for you. The world record of this is probably close to 6 minutes, and my personal best with this is about 6:39. So what just happened right there, as I got the cake, I have never been able to get that cake with any other Sailor Scout in that position, other than like going upwards, which is interesting. My community and I think that it's because Sailor Jupiter is actually taller, like the sprite's taller and the hitbox is taller, which would make sense because in the manga and anime, she is taller than everybody else. Yeah, short speed games are just really relaxing for me. So this guy basically just spam, don't get rid of the clay monster until the very end, because that will postpone his attack to generate more, and he also does like this little laser beam thing, but you basically bypass all of it if you just let the clay monster hit you over and over. So you actually save time just by taking the damage, which is rather funny. But it's always a good time. We're on pretty good pace so far. And luckily the place I fell at the very beginning, we actually were right at a save spot, so I didn't have to start over again. Really nice. If you fall, you just start the level over. And I'm pretty sure on easy percent, if you get a game over, you don't even start the whole game over. You just start at the level. So this is the final boss. I'm gonna let you guys know when time is. It's basically as soon as the screen goes black. But I will try to give you a little heads up happen. Alright, it's almost done, and time! And that's it! Oh, that's it, that's the run. GG's! We saved the world yet again! Yes! Thank you so much! I also wanted to shout out all of people working on this marathon, setting everything up. The logistics of setting up the charity event is pretty strenuous, so I really appreciate it, and I appreciate having this opportunity to show off this really random run. It's one of my favorites now, and it's short, sweet, and to the point, and you can basically use any Sailor Scout you want. The popular one is Sailor Mars, and I think it's because her attack is slightly faster, but I genuinely have no idea, so maybe go try it out. But yes, anyways, that's basically all I have for you today. But if you have any questions in chat, let me know before we end, and I can try to answer them the best we can. Yes, the children are saved, very much so. And I hope you guys enjoy this music because it's some of the best music from a Game Boy game that I know of, at least. Yeah, thanks for having me. Again, this is AirAngel, and have a great weekend.
Okay.
What's up, everyone? I hope you enjoyed Sailor Moon. Like I said, coming up next is Sailor Moon. Before I get into what I'm about to do, and I apologize in advance, I just want to remind everyone that your donations go towards Save the Children and their mission in giving children a healthy start in life, the opportunity to learn, and protection from harm. So thank you to everyone who's donated and everyone who will donate over the course of the rest of the marathon. With that being said, we have a $10 donation from Quo as going towards Super Puzzle Fighter, and it says, "In this video, I will be explaining exactly what I do to collect Watch for Rolling Rocks in 0.5 times A presses. But first, we need to clear something up, because every time I post a half A press video, I get the same comments over and over asking what it means, even though I always have a whole paragraph in the description explaining it, which starts with, 'If you're wondering what half A press is, read this before commenting to ask.' But maybe what you guys need isn't a paragraph, maybe you guys need an example. So, consider Wing Mario over the rainbow, not even the whole star. Just consider getting to that cannon platform, which is a necessary part of getting the star. So how many A presses does it take to get there? Well, if you say 0, that's wrong, because then Mario can't go far enough. If you say 1, well, it's true that Mario can get there with 1, but we can do a little better. We can do it in a half A press. To do that, we start the level already holding A, and then we use that A press to reach the platform. Now hold on, I know what you're thinking. An A press is an A press. You can't say it's only a half. Well, TJ Henry Yoshi, hear me out. An A press actually has 3 parts to it. When A is pressed, when A is held, and when A is released. And together this forms one complete A press. Now usually it's the pressing that's useful, because that's the only part that makes Mario jump. However, sometimes it's sufficient to just use the holding part, which allows Mario to do little kicks, to swim in water, to fall slowly while twirling, and to fall slowly with the wing cap. And as for the release, well, there's currently no cases where that's useful or important, so don't worry about that part. Now, if we map out the required A presses for Wing Mario over the rainbow, it would look like this. We merely need to hold A to reach the cannon platform. We need to press A to launch from the first cannon, and we need to press A again to launch from the second cannon. So, how many A presses is that total? Well, it appears to be 3, and if we were doing this star in isolation, then yeah, it would be 3. But in a full game A button challenge run, there are other A presses that occur earlier in the run, such as this A press needed to get to the course. So if we take that A press into consideration as well, then how many A presses would it take? The naive answer would be 4. 1 to enter the course and 3 within the course that we established earlier. However, we can do better. We can actually do it in 3 by simply holding out the first A press to be used for the half A press. Because the half A press only required A to be held, not actually pressed. So in this fashion, Wing Mario over the rainbow only adds on an additional 2 A presses to the run, since the first A press just leaches off a previous A press. So, to capture this phenomenon, we call it 2.5 A presses. On a single star basis, you'd round that up to 3, but in a full game run, you'd round it down to 2. So, in conclusion, since that first A press counts in some contexts but adds no additional A presses in other contexts, we refer to it as a half A press. So going back to the video, you can see that I started the level with the A button already held, as indicated in the bottom left corner. And so in the full game run, this A press will just leech off a previous one, and so it won't occur an additional A press. Okay, glad that's explained. Now, what am I doing in the video? Here I'm using a trick called Scuttle Bug Transportation. What is this? You see, like most enemies, scuttlebugs have a home, which is just a point in 3D space, and they'll patrol a certain radius around that point. So if Mario enters that radius, they will lunge at him to attack. But unlike most other enemies, a scuttlebug's home can change positions, because if a scuttlebug bumps into Mario, the scuttlebug's home will update to where the scuttlebug was when the collision occurred. So, by strategically luring the scuttlebug to the edge of its radius and bumping into it, we can effectively transport the scuttlebug and its home. So that's what I'm doing here. Note that we can't actually transport a scuttlebug to outside of its native room. They actually get stuck at the door. So if your dream was to bring all the scuttlebugs together for one big jamboree, I'm sorry, but it's not going to happen. Also worth noting is that scuttlebugs will actually disappear if they walk into a wall while too far below their current home. Oh god, where am I? So, I do have to be careful to avoid that. It's pretty weird if you've never seen it before, but I'm pretty sure they did it so that if a scuttlebug jumps into a hole, it wouldn't just walk around down there. Anyway, I'm transporting the scuttlebug to the corner right below the Watch for Rolling Rocks star. Because next, I do a trick called Scuttlebug Raising. And here's how it works. On the left, I show a bird's eye view of the scene, and on the right, I show a view from the side. Now, when Mario leaves the Rolling Rocks room, the Scuttlebug deactivates. That's because the room and everything in it are only active when Mario is in the room or standing in a region right outside the door, indicated here in yellow. So if Mario isn't in the Rolling Rocks room, or in the yellow region, then the room will be completely black and everything in the room will be invisible and won't move. Conveniently, this allows us to raise the scuttlebug by performing the following steps. First, Mario enters the scuttlebug's radius. Although the scuttlebug is invisible and can't move around, it can still turn towards Mario and activate a lunge. Then Mario leaves the radius and the scuttlebug returns to facing its home. Next, Mario enters the yellow region to activate the scuttlebug. The scuttlebug will perform the lunge that it started, but cleverly. We have Mario exit the yellow region right when the scuttlebug is at the peak of its trajectory, thereby deactivating it so it won't fall down. And finally, since the scuttlebug moves past its home, it turns around to face its home once more. Now we gotten all the height we could get out of the scuttlebug's current lunge, but that's no problem because we could just activate another lunge by repeating this procedure. Activating a lunge while the scuttlebug is deactivated, reactivate the scuttlebug just for the upwards portion of its trajectory, and then repeat. As simple as that. So that's what I do here. And I have a second screen to show it from the scuttlebug's perspective. Fortunately, the scuttlebug's radius isn't a sphere, but a cylinder that extends up and down infinitely. So really, no matter how high the scuttlebug gets, we can continue to enter its area to activate its lunges and move it upwards. There's no limit to how high we can raise it. Now, it's worth noting that I only activate the scuttlebug while I'm not inside its radius, so the scuttlebug will always lunge toward its home and not towards Mario. This causes the scuttlebug to effectively travel straight up above its home. But alternatively, I could have activated the scuttlebug while inside of its radius, and in that case, the scuttlebug would always lunge toward Mario instead of towards its home. So it would actually make its way towards the door, and then travel straight up from there. That means it's actually a little faster because we wouldn't have to wait for the scuttlebug to turn back towards its home before each activation. However, it wouldn't work for what we're doing because we need the scuttlebug to be right next to that corner. In fact, the top of that corner has a special property which we call a misalignment. Basically, in the game's code, there's a discrepancy between the way the game handles collision checking with the floors versus walls. This results in a 1x1 unit area where Mario can get under the floor without being pushed away by the walls. And if Mario is less than 79 units under a floor, he'll snap right up onto it. So that'll be important later for getting up there. Anyway, now it's time to build up some speed, and I mean a lot of speed. So to get that speed, we're going to use a trick called hyperspeed walking, and here's how it works. You probably already know that there are some slopes in the game that are too steep to stand on. Mario just slides off of them. But did you know that you actually can stand on these slopes if they're submerged in shallow water? In fact, the underwater portion of these slopes has a special property. If you try to running uphill on them, you'll end up running backwards at an increasing speed with no upper bound. But in most circumstances, this would cause us to end up in the water before building up any real speed. We can get a little more speed by running nearly parallel to the slope by ever so slightly uphill, but eventually the slope runs out, or we move too fast around a corner. But there are some ways to have Mario walk while staying in place. For example, I'm gonna rearrange my desktop a little bit, this is a lot. For example, if there's a wall perpendicular to the slope, then we can use that. That allows Mario to build up quite a bit of speed before he breaks through. However, if the wall isn't perpendicular to the slope, then we end up sliding down into the wall. That's because walls are really just rectangles that push Mario out perpendicularly. So if Mario moves into a wall at an angle, the game will calculate his intended next position and then the wall will push that position out, and then Mario ends up having a net movement along the wall. So ultimately, he will end up moving into the water. So is all hope lost? Well, no, because Tyler Kenny figured out that we can actually make use of the gate. You see, the bottom of the gate is a ceiling, and the game doesn't like putting Mario too close to the area right under a ceiling because it doesn't think he fits. So if we have Mario move backwards into the ceiling, the game will choose not to move him. So we're free to build up speed in place, but not infinite speed because we'd end up breaking free if our speed moved past the gate. So what do? We turn to redirect our speed out of bounds. Notice how we have enough speed so that our intended next position is past the wall and out of bounds. And since the game doesn't like planking Mario out of bounds, it doesn't move him, and instead just lets him stay in place, just like the ceiling. But unlike the ceiling, out of bounds goes on forever. So we can essentially build up as much speed as we want without having to worry about breaking free. So now I do just that. Open the gate, use the ceiling of the gate to build up some speed, and then redirect my angle out of bounds to build up the rest. Now you're probably wondering what I'm going to need all this speed for. After all, I do build up speed for 12 hours. But to answer that, we need to talk about parallel universes. Ooh. And if you thought my other tangents were complicated, just you wait. Okay, so Mario's position is a floating point number, but it's converted to short when the game uses it to test for collision with floor triangles. In other words, Mario's position can basically be any decimal number, but it's converted to an integer between negative 32,768 to positive 32,767 inclusive. So, any fractional portion is truncated and numbers too big or too small are moved into this range using the modulo operator. Graphically, that means the position used for floor detection is always inside of this box. So if Mario's in that box, then his actual position and the position used for floor detection are the same, albeit maybe off by a single fraction due to the truncation. But if Mario leaves that box, then his actual position and the position used for floor detection will separate, since the position used for floor detection will just loop back around to remain in the original box. So now I ask you this, here's the course. So if Mario is standing way over here, where there's no land, but the position used for the floor detection is on land, can he stand over here? The answer is yes. As far as the game sees it, Mario is in fact above land over here because the game actually checks for land over here. So for all intents and purposes, there is essentially land over here, a copy of the original map. And this is what we call a parallel universe, or a PU. And this applies to every one of these boxes. So there's actually a grid of nearly infinite PUs. Here is a 2-scale diagram of the PU grid. As you can see, the PUs are actually pretty far apart, but I'll be taking some creative liberties and drawing them closer together for the sake of clearer visuals. Now, PUs aren't as glamorous as you might think. The graphics are only found on the original map, so the PUs are completely invisible. Furthermore, PUs have no objects like elevators or item blocks, no enemies, no items like coins or stars, and not even any walls. So really it's pretty barren. Furthermore, the N64 console will actually crash if you go to a PU and let the camera follow you. But luckily we can avoid that crash by fixing the camera in place on the original map before leaving. Though that does make it even harder to tell what is going on in the PUs. So as you just saw, you can travel to a PU if you have enough speed, but it's not as simple as you might think. If you have just enough speed to reach the PU one over, it won't actually work. That's because the game actually checks if Mario is above land at each quarter step of his movement. That means the simplest PU movement is moving over 4 PUs at once. That way each quarter step is above land and therefore valid. For simplicity, we call this quadruple PU distance 1 QPU. Now up until this point I've been glossing over a very important detail. Which I now need to clear up. Sorry, when I stop like that, I'm scrolling. What if I told you the distance Mario moves isn't necessarily equal to his speed? For example, look how fast Mario moves at 31 speed on this flat slope, and now compare it to how fast he moves at the same speed on this steeper slope. In both cases, he has about the same speed, but clearly he's moving at different rates. That's because the distance Mario moves is only a portion of his actual speed. And this portion depends on the slope of the ground. The steeper the slope, the smaller this portion is. Note that it only depends on the steepness, not whether Mario is facing uphill, downhill, or sideways on the hill. In these visuals, blue will represent Mario's actual speed, and green will represent the portion of it that he moves, which we call Mario's de facto speed. So in these three pictures, Mario has the same speed, but he has different de facto speeds since he's standing on slopes with different steepnesses. So if we want to move 1 QPU, it's not sufficient to have QPU speed. We need QPU de facto speed, which often means our actual speed will need to be greater than 1 QPU to compensate. So to reiterate, we need to increase our speed until our de facto speed syncs up with 1 QPU, and the speed needed to do this is called the sinking speed. So in this diagram, the blue arrow represents the sinking speed. If we increase our speed, eventually our de facto speed would sync up again when it covers a distance of 2 QPU. And so we'd be able to move at that speed, which is 2 times as fast as before. So in general, any multiple of the lowest sinking speed is itself a sinking speed, and I will cover multiple QPU at once. So remember, every slope has a different set of sinking speeds. Unfortunately, I've gotten word that our run is set up, and by unfortunately, I mean fortunately, because my voice is killing me. Thank you for the $10, Quo. I hope everyone enjoyed their lesson in quantum physics, and enjoy the run. We're going to play a quick video, but after that, Sailor Moon time.
Childhood should be a time when our nation's youngest citizens build their foundation to develop to their full potential. In rural America, many children lack daily opportunities to learn, have nutritious food, and access to healthcare. And these challenges are now magnified by the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. As part of its annual childhood report, Save the Children has created the first ever ranking of U.S. counties, highlighting how well they protect and provide for children. In McDowell County, West Virginia, families are isolated and without resources, struggling to provide kids the childhoods they deserve.
There's not a pediatrician here in the county, and so when a child is sick, oftentimes families have to make a choice if they have gas money to be able to take their child to see that pediatrician, if they need to stay and work instead.
If you have a sick child, the last thing you want to have to do is drive 2 hours to be able to see the doctor and 2 hours home. To me, that's probably one of the biggest challenges in this county.
We worry about her than we do ourselves. We make sure she gets fed before we do.
Our early childhood coordinator that we have here in McDowell County also worked directly with the families to connect them with community resources.
Sometimes it's church across the road, they give out food. When they give out food, I go right over and get a box.
Where a child is born or where they grow up shouldn't determine their future. To make things better for children and for our shared future, we must all come together. Save the Children provides early childhood education services in communities across the country that seek to address children's social and emotional growth as well as improve their educational achievement. Compassionate individuals like you can make a difference by supporting our efforts to help our nation's most marginalized children.
If somebody doesn't see that these children are struggling and pick them up and give them the assistance or be a good role model for them, then they are going to be left behind.